Hi, my name is Jade Facey and I will be discussing and evaluating Elvaston Castle in this presentation. Our client is Elvaston Castle Country Park, Derbyshire. Elvaston Castle is a Gothic revival building designed by a man called James Wyatt in the 1800s. The castle isn't currently open to public, however, with the plans and strategies mentioned throughout the presentation, having this magnificent castle open to public could potentially be something that we work towards as a long-term goal. It is an independent charity that is organised and managed by Elvaston Estate Trustees, who also have a contract with Derbyshire Council to ensure that the castle remains in the public ownership and can be enjoyed by the surrounding communities for generations to come. The castle is seen as the heart of the community and a tranquil place to relax and enjoy the outside gardens. Currently, the public use the grounds for walking, cycling, picnicking and other small community events such as spring fairs. One main goal for the property and the community is to make all projects and refurbishments as sustainable as possible in order for it to keep running costs low and to minimise the amount of damage caused to the local area and woodland surroundings. Pestle analysis is one way of examining the environmental factors that surround any business. In this presentation, I will discuss 6 categories that the Board of Trustees will have to consider with their plans to renovate and refurbish the property as well as the Elvaston Castle brand. Political is the first category to the pestle analysis. In this section, of course, I will include Brexit as that will have an effect on most of the businesses, especially ones that rely on funding from government or the European Union. The austerity in the moment means that the local councils and governments will be looking to cut costs wherever they can since the exit of the European Union in January. As there are no published statistics for Elvaston Castle or the funding it has, it is hard to discuss how much Brexit will affect them in the future. However, plans for the property for the long term and short term are that they won't need to rely on funding from places such as local councils and will gain it from other independently funded events, projects and hospitality endeavours. The castle has the potential to offer the community. A lot of businesses in the voluntary sector rely on funding from councils, government as well as the EU, as I've previously mentioned. Because of the economic climate that is going on right now, it is uncertain that funding will continue for various different projects, including Elvaston. If they really need to gain funding to continue projects for the short term, they can look at other places such as the lottery funding. The social factor is also a very important key to consider when building up a business or project. Understanding the population and what they're interested in can help to make the projects more successful. Knowing the demographics before you start marketing will help to market the events and projects more efficiently because you've already had a head start on what you think will be attractive to the community. The Derbyshire area has an increasingly growing population. They have predicted that by 2041 the population will increase by 8%. The average age of the people in the Derbyshire area is around 45 years old. However, over 20% of the population is between the ages of 20 to 39. So when planning and marketing events, they should bear those age gaps in mind. With the social climate promoting equality and inclusivity, it's becoming harder to predict what types of events and projects the demographics will be interested in. Years ago, males would typically be interested in traditional male activities and females would be interested in traditional female activities. However, this isn't always the case. So whereas before you would have assumed males would like car events and females would like knitting events, that isn't always the case. So market research is absolutely vital in this day and age. Economic factors that need to be analysed in order for Elvaston Castle to be a success. The economics and finances of a business can make or break a business, especially when it is a charity that is currently running on funding from councils and governments. There is a lot of factors that could impact the financial success of Elvaston Castle, for example, being aware of the household incomes for the area. This factor also links to employment rate for the surrounding area. If there is a high unemployment rate for Derbyshire, then there may also be a low household income rate, which will affect the type of events that projects may want to go to. In Derbyshire area, 2.3% of residents are unemployed. This statistic is lower than the national average. However, it has risen since the previous year by 0.5%. This means 11,000 members of the community from January 2020 don't have a reliable income from a job. This fact can affect the type of events people may want to attend if they don't have the disposable income. However, Because this is a tourist attraction, you have to consider that the community isn't the only people that will attend. The surrounding areas may have a better unemployment rate and therefore will be bringing in more tourism. However, to be on the safe side before any plans are set in stone, it will be beneficial for the community and the board members to do some market research, as mentioned before. The technological factors will help to improve and promote anything that is going on in the Elvaston grounds. As seen on this slide, the current level of social media for Elvaston Castle is very low. They don't have a huge platform to encourage the community and various stakeholders to come and visit the property. If they did introduce a social media manager, as the business gets bigger and better, then it will take on a knock-on effect and get the ball rolling with the level of exposure that they could have potentially on various social media platforms. Currently, they only use Facebook to its absolute minimum, only promoting very small scale events. They haven't yet entered the world of Instagram, Twitter or even Snapchat. As the project starts to develop, they could potentially market and promote through these platforms, with photos to showcase what they have on offer now, as well as what they will have on offer in the future. Keeping within the guidelines of the law is the first step to ensure a successful business. Elvaston Castle is a Grade 2 listed building, but this means that it is of special interest and warranted every effort to preserve it. This means that the building and property is legally protected from being demolished by whoever owns it. It also has to gain special permission if it needs to be altered in any way to make sure the alterations don't significantly damage or destroy the rich history of the building. This means that the accessibility and usability of the building will need to be considered for the public's interest. Having slight alterations for it to be safer may cost quite a bit, as it's quite an old building, which is why in the short term they should consider doing any events or projects located outside, as it won't have to worry about the accessibility to the building. A second legal aspect that the organisers will need to consider is various different licences that they will need to get for any events or projects, such as alcohol licence or music licence. The environmental factor is one that cannot be controlled or predicted, especially with this UK weather. Holding a lot of the events and projects outside will mean that planners will have to have a contingency plan. For example, if they were to have an outdoor cinema, they would need to think about what if it was to rain that day, would people still want to come, and potentially offering them free raincoats so that they can still enjoy the film outside. This will need to be taken into consideration with the budget, which is why a contingency plan is crucial. One of the biggest environmental factors that is important to a lot of people now is the sustainability factor. With the increasingly important change in the social opinion, climate change would be something that organisers need to take seriously. Having a sustainable event and castle may attract more customers than they anticipated. Making events environmentally friendly is something that they can promote throughout the year. I have conducted a SWOT analysis for Elvaston Castle. In order to eradicate threats and work on the weaknesses for the business to make it accessible as possible, it is vital for everyone to do a SWOT analysis. Understanding the strengths and opportunities is just as important as the threats and weaknesses. One of the biggest strengths for Elvaston Castle is the vast amount of land that comes with the castle. It allows planners, organisers, trustees, everyone who's involved to come up with new and exciting projects that can happen in the ground. It takes the pressure off of the building and its renovations that will continue to happen. They can focus on the outdoor events to bring in more money and eventually allow them to refurbish and revamp the inside of the property to make sure it's safe and at an adequate level. As I've said before, identifying weaknesses is important for the business to thrive. One of the biggest and main weaknesses for this business is that the castle can't actually be used for the public. The public are missing out on the rich history that comes with the castle, which dates back a century, and would be nice for the local community as well as visiting tourists to get a better understanding for this amazing project. Especially since the weather in the UK doesn't always compromise our plans, it would be nice to use the castle as part of the contingency plan. One of the opportunities that I've analysed for Elvaston Castle and the area is the link between the employment rate and the business itself. As the business continues to grow, it would be great to get the local community in to work there, As the business grows, it would mean there was more money and funding to have employees, and employing from the local area is two birds with one stone. As the business gets bigger, with the events getting bigger and better, they can afford to have events managers, wedding planners, social media managers to keep the momentum going for the business to grow. This is such an important opportunity for the business to explore as timeline goes on, because it will show that the castle supports the community and the community in turn will support the castle. As far as threats go, there isn't any major threats that I identified. The biggest one would probably be the weather, as I've mentioned before. Because UK weather is getting worse by the year, it means that flooding is pretty much inevitable, and flooding can destroy events, hold off events, and leave a negative image in people's minds. If the property was to get flooded, it would mean that the event would have to be cancelled, and if it didn't have a contingency plan that was good enough, people may not want to return to that event or the property, as they'd be very disappointed. Competitor analysis is so important if you want to grow a business and compete with other companies that offer the same product or service. This includes both indirect and direct competitors, which I will go on to explain. Direct competitors are other companies and businesses who offer the same or similar product or service to what you have. For in this instance, it would be the vast amount of land that Elvaston Castle has, as well as the potential to hold weddings. The top wedding venue that came up on a Google search in the same area as Elvaston is the Honeysuckle Castle. It is around 4.5 miles away. This would be considered a competitor as it is a very popular and well-established wedding venue, which is something that Elvaston Castle should have expanded into, as the property is beautiful and has a lot of potential for various different parts of a wedding. The wedding industry is extremely lucrative and would be something that would help with the refurbishment cost. Another direct competitor with a huge amount of land will be Melbourne Hall Gardens, which is around 5.5 miles away. This is a beautiful property that attracts the same type of tourists. However, the difference between this and Elvaston is that Melbourne charges for entry, which is something that Elvaston does not yet do, but could potentially consider once the renovations have started. On this map, I have identified other potential competitors for Elvaston Castle. An indirect competitor is another business who offers a product or services that are in the same sector as yours. In this instance, Elvaston Castle would fall into the leisure sector, and indirect competitors would be cinemas, theatres, bowling alleys, and so on, competing for the same consumers' time. One of the top indirect competitors that I've identified is the East Midlands Aero Park, which is an aviation museum around 7 miles away. This business will be competing for tourist time and money. Even though offering completely different services, they are still an attraction and an entertainment for consumers' spare time and disposable income, especially if the consumers are staying in the East Midlands for a weekend. They will have limited time, but a lot of choice, so it's important to market Elvaston correctly so it gives them the best platform to bring in new tourists. And finally, a sector analysis is also crucial if you want the business to be a success, because you can identify flaws with the sector itself and work on them for your own business. For Elvaston, as they expand into various different events and projects, one of the main concerns for everyone in the population is security at events. We've all heard some horror stories over the last few years of things that have happened that should not have happened. As the times change, businesses have to adapt and change to keep up with what consumers want. With the various different horrible events that have happened in the news, it's key to any event to have the correct and proper services for security and safety measures in the event. Whether it's a natural disaster or unfortunate man-made disaster, consumers want to feel safe wherever they go. Before any member of the public attends an event or steps into a venue, it is important to have a correct risk assessment done of the layout to ensure the correct measures are in place, such as fire escapes, hazard trips, etc. One bad incident or accident could impact the image of Elvaston for good. It could have a knock-on effect for the future events, and people may never want to return. Hopefully this will never happen, as the team of events people will have done everything they can to ensure the safety and enjoyment for all the consumers. Thank you. That is the end of my analysis for Elvaston Castle. If you have any questions, please let me know. My references will be attached to the slides. Thank you.